Single family versus multifamily. This question is always asked, which is the better investment? In today's episode of the Hoan Zone, where we help you multiply the assets that you own, I'm going to go over the benefits and the challenges to investing in both. And at the end of the video, I'm going to tell you which one I think is best for you when you're just starting out. Before we get to that, please like the video. It costs you nothing and it goes to a great cause. Me. Also, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon because every Monday and Wednesday I'm releasing a new video on the Hoan Zone that's going to help you multiply the assets that you own. So I'm going to come to you with the perspective of being invested in both. Currently, I'm invested in over 20 single-family doors as well as over 300 multifamily doors. And with that, I have this unique point of view because I'm currently invested in both. I don't necessarily like one over the other, but I also don't hate one over the other. And so let's go dive into that. My very first deal was a 6-unit apartment building that I purchased back in 2011. I purchased this property in a really bad neighborhood post-crash, the 2008 crash. So prices were super low and the neighborhood was super bad. And combine that, you have a super cheap property. I was able to buy that multifamily property for $38,000. $38,000 for a 6-unit property in Philadelphia. Now, I had to put over 6 figures into rehabbing the place, but at the end of it, I had this wonderful cash flowing multifamily property, and I was just like, wow, that's my first deal. Most people start off with a single family. That just goes to show you that you don't have to. The way I was able to invest in that multifamily deal was I understood every step of the process when buying a property, rehabbing it, and then renting it out. And then I also refinanced it. I BRRR'd the property, BRRRR. I BRRR'd the property before BRRRR had a name. So I was able to cash out, refinance back in 2011 on the 6-unit property. One of the things that I liked and hated about it was that everything was magnified. So with the incomes, I had 6 units, 6 incomes coming in. Fantastic. Love that part. When I made a mistake, it was 6 times the mistakes. So I remember installing electric baseboard heaters, and all of the electric baseboard heaters that I installed were either improperly installed or the baseboard heater itself just didn't work well. And so I had to replace all of the heaters that I just bought. And so this was thousands of dollars that I had to pay for all of these heaters and all of these units to be replaced. And where did that money come from? My pocket, right? So magnified, everything's multiplied. So the good is multiplied, the bad's multiplied, it's all magnified. And so if you do well, then you're going to get paid for it. And if you do bad, if you make a mistake, you poor decisions, you're going to feel it. One of the benefits of it being a multifamily is that a multifamily, this property was much larger than the single families that were around it. And because it was larger, it required much more money for rehab. And because the rehab costs were significant enough, because the acquisition price was so low that the combination, the loan size was large enough that I could go to a hard money lender and get funded on this deal. If it was a single family property where I'm buying it for $40,000 and I had a very small rehab cost, they might not have been interested in that loan. But because this was large enough, it was a loan that was interesting to them. So I was able to get hard money pretty easily back in 2011 when a lot of people weren't lending on real estate anymore. So being that it was a multifamily, I think that was my saving grace and what allowed me to get into this deal. If you've never heard about hard money, or if you want to learn more about how to buy properties with no money, check out one of my courses. I have courses listed on hoanzone.com, so always check back and see what's new. Also, you can check out my video on how to buy properties with no money. Enough of all that. Let's get into the video. What's better, multifamily or single family for your investments? First thing I'm going to touch upon is financing. So with financing, as we know, you can raise money for financing. So with a multifamily, because it's larger and it requires more money, typically there is more juice in the squeeze. And that means you can include more people in your deal. But you're going to need to include a lot more people. So this is kind of a toss-up. A single family, you can raise money and you can have a single lender who can lend you, let's say, $150,000. Single lender, give them a note mortgage, and voila, you now have your real estate investment. You have your one lender and done. Multifamily property, depending on how large you go, let's say it's like the 300 plus unit investment property that I'm in, it's a syndication. So the syndication is going to have multiple investors and you're going to have to raise multi millions of dollars. If you're interested in such a project, such an endeavor, well, you got your hands full because there's a lot to it. So, large deal, lots of money, but there's more juice in that squeeze. There's more profit to be distributed to a lot of people. So some people might see that as an easy thing, and other people will go, wow, that's really intimidating. So maybe you want to start off with the single family or smaller deals where you can have one lender fund the entire deal. So financing, that's kind of a draw. Where the multifamily shine in terms of financing is when it comes to your permanent financing. With large enough multifamily properties, you can get what's called a non-recourse loan, which means that they can't go after you personally. Whereas I have yet to hear about a single family home or even a portfolio of single family homes where you got a non-recourse loan. So being not personally liable, being off the hook in that regard, where if you don't pay your mortgage, the bank just takes the property and doesn't go after you personally, that's definitely a nice perk, and that's one that the multifamily space definitely enjoys. Another downside about the single family is that if your loan is too small, a lot of lenders will say no, believe it or not. So if your loan's like under $100,000, they're going to be not so interested in lending you that money. Whereas multifamily, it's a much bigger loan, and so people are interested in lending on that. Now, the downside of the multifamily is sometimes your loans are so big that you're limited to who you can borrow from. There's only a handful of people that you can borrow from. That's where the smaller single family, you had a lot of lenders, a lot of competition. Now, the second thing that I wanted to address was scale. When you're buying properties from sellers, you're going to deal with the actual person who owns the property. So if you're dealing with a single family purchase, then you're going to deal with one seller per property. Unless maybe it's like they're selling a portfolio, but typically one seller sells one property. Whereas a multifamily, the seller of an apartment building, and that apartment building could be 300 units, that's still just one seller. So you see how if you're trying to get into like really high numbers, dealing with 100 single family owners versus dealing with one multifamily owner, that scale, it just, you can't compare it, right? So multifamily definitely has a leg up in terms of scale. You can scale way faster because you don't have to deal with so many people. The other way that scale comes into play is economy of scale. So with a multifamily, if you're going to rehab the thing, you're buying 100 toilets, you're buying 100 bathtubs, 100 kitchens, whereas single family, you're just buying one. So when you're going to a distributor, you don't have that much leverage. If you say to the distributor, hey, I need 100 doors or 100 windows or 1,000 windows, all of a sudden you can get price breaks. Whereas a single family, you don't have much leverage. You're just like every other customer that goes do their stuff. One downside to that economy of scale is when you're rehabbing a multifamily property, you're going to be buying hundreds of items of the same thing. You need 100 HVAC units, 100 sinks, all of that stuff. If there's ever a material shortage, then you're going to be stuck. Whereas a single family, I just need one toilet, I just need one bathtub, I just need one vanity, whatever it is, right? It's just one. It's way easier to source that material versus a multifamily who needs hundreds or thousands of items. So single family, you will always complete your project. You're never going to have a material shortage so bad that you won't be able to complete your project. Whereas a multifamily, you might get stuck where you just don't have enough or half your project gets done. So it can help you, but it can also hurt you. Now the third one, let's talk about teams. With a multifamily property, you can have a team. You can have people who specialize in the rehab. You can have people who specialize in the property management. You can have an acquisitions team. You can have players specializing in particular parts of the deal. So you don't have to do everything. Whereas a single family, there's usually not enough room for you to have a team. So you're going to be the one who is finding the properties and then managing the construction and collecting the rents and all of that kind of stuff. Now you can hire a third-party property manager, but it's not your that's not your team, that's your third-party person that you're hiring. So single family, you don't really have a team, whereas large multifamily, you have a team. They're the general partners on the deal in the syndication, and they're specialized in whatever it is that they do. And what's really great about that, if you have a great team with all A players because you're doing really big deals and the really big deals have a lot of profit to pay all of the team members, you have these really great people, you're probably going to end up making a lot more money because you have these really smart people on the team. You would be your smartest person on your team at the single family realm. But in the multifamily space, you can have a really, really great team, all A-plus players, and you guys can all be making a ton of money because there's a lot of juice in that squeeze, as I've been saying. Now, the last thing I want to discuss is availability. Availability, single family, this is where they shine, right? There are so many more single family homes than there are multifamily homes. That's just obvious. You drive down any street and there's a ton of single family homes. Multifamilies, much, much less, right? So if you're interested in doing a bunch of deals and constantly being engaged and motivated and doing a bunch of things, single family homes will keep you busy all day long. Multifamily, when you have a project going on, like when you finally find one and are closing on the deal, that's going to keep you busy. But then finding your next one might pose a challenge because there's just less properties. And if it's a very competitive time, then there's a lot of people going after that small pool of properties. Whereas multifamilies, you have way more properties, and then you also have less sophisticated sellers. And so you can find better deals with the smaller single families because if the person doesn't know about the market, they may not understand how much their house is actually worth, and you can buy it at a much bigger discount than with multifamily. So just the pool that you're fishing in, you're catching smaller fish, but you're catching many, many more fish versus one giant whale. So you really pick and choose which lifestyle you want, really. So lots of opportunities. Now, there's still a lot of opportunities with multifamily. It's just less properties. That's all. Let me know in the comments which strategy you're leaning towards, or if you're already invested, which one do you do? Which one do you like better? Do you like single family investing or multifamily investing? Again, there's no right or wrong answer, but I love to hear about what you're doing. All right, this is the moment you've all been waiting for. Drum roll, please. My opinion on which strategy is best for you just starting out. And my opinion is whichever strategy you will do, right? A lot of people will get stuck in analysis paralysis where they're just going to be thinking and weighing the pros and the cons. Anytime there's a pro and a con with anything in the world, that means there's no right answer. There's just an answer. So figure out which answer is for you, figure out which strategies for you, and just go for it. Whichever one excites you enough where you're going to take action, that's the one you do. I got involved with multifamily in the beginning. And then I struggled finding another multifamily. So then I started buying singles. And then I found other multis. So then I bought those. And then I got involved with the syndication. And now I'm involved in all types of deals. So whichever one you're going to do, just do that. And don't think whichever one you choose, you're stuck there. You're not. You're not stuck there. So pick and go. And that, I think, is the best advice. So there's not one that's better than the other, and whoever is doing one is going to tell you that their way is the best. Look, you're going to find an argument for both sides. So it doesn't matter. Just pick one, go for it, multiply your assets, okay? And if you don't like doing this anymore, then go do that. And if you don't like doing that, go back to this one. Whatever you want to do, just do something. That's what's most important. Definitely know you got a lot of value out of this video, so please press the like button. It doesn't cost any money. Just bink, right? And subscribe. I'm going to be releasing more videos every Monday and Wednesday. So subscribe to the Hoan Zone where we're going to help you multiply the assets that you own. All right, guys. See you in the next video.